Here's a cool question for you. Why are coins round? I mean, here I am contradicting myself by holding a coin that is rectangular, and there are quite a few examples of coins that aren't round, but in the vast majority of cases, a coin is a round object. And if you ask anyone who's not into coin collecting to draw a coin, they will draw, well, a circle. To get an answer, as always, let's look into the past, at a time before the invention of coins, when commodities were the only form of money. To begin our little exploration, let's get some chronological references. The invention of coins is currently credited to the Lydians, who lived in what is today Western Turkey. The first Lydian coins are dated to the middle of the 7th century BC. On your screen now I'm showing footage of one of these very first coins. I'll get back to it once we explore the concept of why coins were invented. What the Lydians did wasn't really a revolution in money, but rather an evolution. Metal had been used as money for millennia before the invention of coins, and weight standards also predate coinage. A very famous example of a weight standard is the Babylonian shekel. It weighs the equivalent of 8.4 modern grams. Here's a cool picture of a few ancient silver fragments, weighing fractions of the shekel. There's also a pale gold nugget at the far left. I'm pointing at it with an arrow now. This is a proto-coin, an electrum ingot, a predecessor of the first Lydian coins. What differentiates this ingot from a coin is basically the lack of any symbols or designs. And as we can see from this picture, these proto-coins weren't round. I mean, there wasn't the need for them to be round. These were little precious metal pieces. They were weighted with each transaction. Prices were given in the standard weights that were used in trade in a certain region, and if the weight of the metal you were offering in trade was equal to the standard unit of the land, you had something you could transact with. Then we get to the actual first coins and what differentiates them from simple metal ingots. The symbols added to a coin weren't there just to make them look pretty. They tie that piece of metal to the authority of a state, or maybe the reputation of some local merchant. They add a component of trust and prestige that individuals conducting trade didn't have. A coin doesn't need to be weighted on each transaction. Its precious metal purity is supposed to be consistent and to have been checked. It is guaranteed by a powerful entity, by a king, in this case the Lydian king, or maybe by the local merchants guild. Generally someone who could assert their authority by force or by an unquestionable reputation, making coins by far the most efficient tool for conducting trade. This innovation, these coins, at first took very different physical shapes. It's not like people magically decided a round piece was the way to go. Let's illustrate this with some examples. The first Indian coins are most likely the Shatamanas from the kingdom of Gandhara. The date when these coins were first produced is disputed. Some say they developed independently in India around the same time as the first Lydian and Greek coins, so the earliest examples would have been from the 7th century BC. Others claim the Achaemenid Persians, who conquered Gandhara in the late 6th century BC, introduced their weight standard on the region, as these little bent bar coins weigh the equivalent of 2 Persian sigloi. This would push the start date of the series to around the year 500 BC. And as you can clearly see, the coin is a silver bar. These were cut from long silver rods, weighted and trimmed to be of an exact standard weight, and then 2 punch marks were added to both ends of the bar. This served not only as an official symbol of the authority who made the coin, but also a way to prevent anyone from clipping small pieces of silver out of the bar. If the symbols at the edges weren't fully visible, the coin was not good anymore, it had been tampered with. The concept of the Shatamana kept being used for centuries. Here's once again the coin I showed you at the beginning of the video. These are called karshapanas, or punch-marked coins, because as we can see, instead of a single design, they have a series of different little symbols marked on them by the royal mint. This particular one we have here was issued by the Mauryan Empire, roughly dated between 320 and 180 BC. That's quite eye-opening. From the start of the Shatamana series in 500 BC to the later Karshapanas in 180 BC, we see our preconceived idea of coins having to be round is almost delusional. The Indians were doing perfectly fine with square coins for over 3 centuries. We then have the curious case of China. Before the appearance of round coins around 350 BC, coins shaped like spades and knives were used. The dating of these types is heavily disputed as well, with the first examples used as coins dated between 600 and 400 BC, making them serious candidates for the world's oldest coins. They were too small and too flimsy to be used as actual tools, like actual spades or knives, so they had to be either used as some sort of fiduciary money, with a value dictated by the state, or priced based on their metal weight. China used bronze as its monetary metal for most of its ancient history, and it's likely that the predecessors of these coins were actual bronze tools traded around by people in a conventional barter system. These tools must have been traded for such a long time that their shape became synonymous with the very concept of money, serving as an inspiration for China's first quote-unquote coins. But how about the place where coins were first made? What shape did they pick for their coins? Let's once more go back to Lydia in the 7th century BC. This little hecte here does have all of the features necessary for it to be called a coin. It is of a standard weight, its gold and silver alloy is consistent with other contemporary pieces, it can be attributed to an issuing state and a certain region, and it has symbols to identify it as a coin, a texture on the obverse and an ink sponge on the reverse. Its actual shape, however, is entirely defined by physics. You see, when you melt a tiny piece of metal in a crucible, it naturally assumes a round shape. All the Lydians did was to pick up this red-hot ball of precious metal and strike it with an obverse and a reverse die, without any concern for its final shape. The end result is this slightly squished ball. Soon, their Greek neighbors started striking their own coins in similar fashion. This stater was made in the 6th century BC in the city of Cyzicus. Here, we can see some technical and artistic evolutions. The obverse has an actual design on it instead of just a texture, but there's still no sign of any work put on making the coin round. It's still something like a ball of metal. The forces involved in the striking process, however, started to flatten this globular planchet, spreading the metal on all directions, and this gave it a somewhat of a round shape. The hammer blow in this planchet in particular was so strong that we can see 2 huge tears on the coin. If the strike was just slightly stronger, it could have shattered this coin. The Achaemenid Persians also made coins in this globular shape. Here's a siglos from the 5th century BC, featuring the Achaemenid king of kings on the obverse, holding an arrow and a spear, and on the reverse it also has that ink sponge like the Lydian coins. As we enter the classical period between 500 and 323 BC, coins become unquestionably round. The number of coins issued in this period is much larger than the previous archaic period. Around this time, the introduction of casting molds in coin manufacture must have become widespread. A casting mold was a simple yet very useful innovation. It works like this. You get a block of some very tough material like stone, like some stone that is hard enough, and you carve in it a series of spaces of standardized size where the molten metal would be poured in, allowing one mint worker to prepare multiple coin blanks at the same time. A round shape would be the most optimal for this process, as a round receptacle allowed the liquid metal to easily fill each slot fully. Of course, people could have cast square planchets with this technique, or any shape they wanted, but any other shape would likely have tight areas where the metal might not flow into, resulting on a bad planchet that would have to be recycled. A round flan was by far the most efficient shape for this process. Alternatively, a square flan could be achieved by cutting squares off a metal sheet in a way similar to what the Indians did, but this was prone to inaccuracies, and this type of production was more labor-intensive. A cast round planchet was consistently the same diameter, thickness, and weight, while demanding less work. The best example of a coin of the classical period is the super famous Athenian owl tetradrachma, like this one we have here. This is an example of the very common mass issue series, struck between 440 420 BC roughly. Despite its somewhat irregular shape, classical owl tetradrachma are mostly round. These coins were probably cast on more compact flans, and once they were struck, the heavy hammer strike made the metal flow to the sides, giving the rims of this coin this rounded appearance. The exact date when round planchet casting with molds was introduced is a matter of debate. Some of the earliest Athenian owls, dated from the 510s BC, still look like the earlier archaic coins with an irregular globular shape, but we also have even earlier Athenian coins, such as this Vapenmunsen we see on the right, dated around 545 BC, already showing signs of being made with the use of a casting mold. As you can see, it is quite round in shape. So, alright, we've taken a look at when the first round coins were made, roughly, and we've seen that there are plenty of examples of ancient coins that are not round. But why did round coins become the norm? Why has this shape been preferred over other shapes? It mostly had to do with the working conditions in ancient mints and the number of coins that had to be made. Working in a mint was quite unpleasant. The heat and smoke from furnaces melting metals around the clock, the constant pressure for making lots and lots of coins. Let's remember that coins were produced in industrial numbers, but using pre-industrial technology, so anyone striking coins must have had a daily quota of coins they were supposed to produce. Accidents must have been very common, with burns and crushed fingers being part of your routine, so any time-saving measures that reduced the amount of time per coin struck must have been very welcome. So we've already discussed the first time-saving measure, casting multiple coins at once using molds, instead of smelting individual planchets. The next argument in favor of round coins had to do with die placement. All ancient coins were struck by hand, meaning one die was fixed like to a surface, typically an anvil, then you placed the hot planchet over it, and then a moving die, normally for the reverse, went on the top of it. It was held in place by hand by a mint worker, and finally, a swift hammer blow would imprint the obverse and reverse designs on the planchet, giving you a complete coin. With a circular planchet, you of course did have to make sure that the design on the die was covering the planchet, but at least you didn't have to worry about die rotation. There was an ideal alignment between obverse and reverse they aimed for. They were generally supposed to be rotated 180 degrees, and one in relation to the other, while other coins were supposed to have both sides facing the same direction. But in any case, if the dies happened to be rotated at any other angle, the end result was still a coin with all of the design elements in it, fit for being put into circulation. Square coins, however, required the mint worker to spend precious time aligning the die with the planchet, and they had to make sure it wasn't at an angle. Otherwise, a big part of the design would be left out of the coin, most likely resulting in a coin unfit for circulation. Remember, ancient monarchs were particularly interested in passing their political message through their coins. It was their only equivalent of mass media, so producing high-quality, clearly readable coins in the shortest amount of time possible was very serious business. Here we have a medieval coin from the Almohad Caliphate. The designs on the die is the same size and shape as the planchet, so it must have required quite a careful placement of the die to make sure all of the design was imprinted into this square little shape. Here are a couple of examples of square coins with misaligned dies. The one on the left is from the Indo-Greek king Menander I. This case here isn't even that bad, but we can see that even a minor rotation of the die resulted on the legends on the left part of the design becoming unreadable. The coin on the right side, however, a bronze fraction from the Indo-Scythians, it's just a disaster. Basically, half of the legends are unreadable. Since this was a bronze coin, meant to be small change, whoever was controlling the mint just let this coin slip, but you would never see such a flaw on a silver coin. It would have had to be recycled and restruck, a waste of precious time and labor. Square and oddly shaped coins were also inconvenient. Coins with straight edges could easily be clipped, that is, precious metal could be shaved off the edges of the coin, reducing a coin's intrinsic value. If you do this to a round coin, it's easier to detect clipping, either because the cut part would eat into the design of the coin, so it was easy to see that a coin was tampered with, and seeing straight cuts against a round coin, it's of course much easier to detect. Finally, there's the simple matter of ergonomics. Non-round coins wear faster. Any protruding parts of a coin are prone to excessive wear, they're prone to tearing through the fabric of whichever container they were being held in. So, for example, if you had it in a pouch, you would lose these coins more often. The coin is basically less practical to handle and easier to lose. Here we have an English halfpenny, cut from a whole penny, issued under Henry III. These sharp edges were so inconvenient that a later king, Edward I, in his monetary reform, created new half and quarter penny denominations that were round and forbade the cutting of coins to make small change. So, finally, to answer our question for today, why are coins round? Because, well, it's the best shape for a coin to be. It doesn't have to be round, but a round coin is easier, quicker, and cheaper to make. It's more resistant to wear and tampering, and, throughout history, there were plenty of coins that were not round, but non-round coins were, how may I put it, they're less efficient at being a coin compared to a round coin. So there you have it. Did you enjoy the episode? If you did, consider subscribing and leaving a like. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.